You could think of the symbol Adidas, but what about Pythagoras? As a particular example of the frequency for prescience, look inside a small funnel with a stem sort of like what is used to put oil in a car engine. Look inside the funnel, notice the lines around the circumference narrowing to the stem. This provides moderate influence and produces a mathematical equation for the rate of narrowing condensational flows, like waters swirling down then around and inside the inverted pyramid. I think we set up the numbering systems this way, so we could eventually access certain memories about the golden age of our universe. Our sun is inside of a quasar, and this is how all ruminating systems sort of gestate the residual, a way to put it. It is rolling down or drafting down the funnel in a narrowing trajectory by sequence. The planets above form elliptical momentum because of an awkward trajectory inside as we entered the stemming font of the funnel. This happened by intention, and I'll try explaining it, but I happen to be waiting for eggs to cool, and then I will eat a sandwich. Still cooling. Think of a planet like a ball stuck 1/3 into a volcano, or with snow built up around it. We're drifting, not rolling around the sun while free-falling at the speed of light squared, double-sided, through a quantificationally narrowing momentum that you could think of like sand blasting. This creates a divotal response like suction cups, but really it's where the planet started, the reason it was formed. The movement is not just the planet creasing into time-space fabric, more like resting in the former momentum of water going down a drain. The wormhole turning the planet is a physical presence. The volcano or snow shield moves with the planet, and the symmetry to a certain extent remains constant. If you were to build a ball up in snow so that it was on a small hill and on top indented in the snow to about 1/3 to 1/2 with a regularity to 1/4 in recess, you could simply use your hand to take away that built up snow and the ball would fall without touching it. The area of the snow you removed would determine the direction of the ball. From what I understand from the ruminating sequence, they were able to do this to the 9th planet. 3 are further extended. There is a total of 12. 1 is an amplifier reference and its reverse energy magnetic. I'm not sure if it is counted in the 12 or just 8. My sandwich, God, it was good. With my stomach full, I think I can type while I smoke a cigarette, sit up, maybe get some more coffee. Anyway, there are 3 more that are still further out, but they're not related to our sequence. We're not related, but I think they've been drug into it, and that is where a lot of this is coming from. The people trying to kill us were able to create a hollowing frequency or crevice in front of the 9th planet, and they timed it to hit the Earth. When this happened, the collision didn't knock us out of orbit, but it did change the drift mechanics. As a notational axis of antidote, our rotational axis is narrowing. This has been Mossad. From this collision the moon was created and the asteroid fields that surround our envelope or planetary systems. What was left of the 9th planet didn't roll back but just drifted from the ricochet up the chain. It didn't hit the other planets because the snow around the planet creates a buffer to an aimlessly drifting object in recess, but when it reached its original orbit or station, it fell into the larger recess that was still orbiting but without the former planet. Sort of like a hard-hit golf ball meandering around a hilly green until it sinks in the cup. The golden cup or holy grail for them is long life with prescience. The cycles or downdrafting notations inside the funnel are viewed in 3-week cycles or intervals. There are also hairs that aren't perceptible, but we know they're there, and that is what they are interested in. You could think of what they're doing or what they did to dwarves who busted up the planets in order to access or mine certain information. I don't think they thought we would fall out of recess and into the sun. The objective was something different. As a way of explaining it, there were 2 kinds of mantis. They're 8 to 10 tall, upright, standing bug-like creatures. The northern host are black, the exoskeleton, and radiate a reversal of magnetic energy in terms of the way we experience it as humans. They have an extreme intelligence that was described to me to represent something like an arch in a sickle, or the circumference of the circle that extends past the underlying frame. The southern mantis are light and darkish green. Their exoskeleton overall reminds me of pea soup. Sort of dull in some places and darker and shiny in others. They radiate energy, but it's like a blush compared to the dark cousin. Generally an evolved intelligence beyond stage 1 has no interest in destroying planets, but for whatever reason there was one who did. Jealousy got him drafting towards possessive momentum. He eventually rationalized his process without apology as what everyone really wants to do deep down. The pea soup ones are smart, but obsessed with digging. Finding identity, finding treasure, the goal or orient to be defined by the connotational value of something found in a cave, or dug up from dirt in a tunnel. TS holding a book, or DT standing in front of an airplane for a speech or interview are good examples. The green ones teamed up by necessity with some reptiles on the exterior frame of the host planets, number 9, but the name wasn't Pluto. I don't know the language, but I think my training is coming from a female dark mantis. Math's a bitch when you don't understand the extended compound variables implied in the pitch of angular momentums. There's confusion from the fact there are two narrative momentums, the southern mantis looking for an element to satisfy a curiosity of suspicion, the traitor, dark mantis provided the solution, but I still don't know the specifics. The thinking of the southern mantis developed to a point of inversion. The symbol they showed me looked like an hourglass or concave momentum inside a square of reverberation, not the circle overlaying a square more related to the drawing by Da Vinci that was developed by the darker cousins. Green thinking was developed over time as a result of the perception of contrast to higher forms of performance. The northern intelligence is hard to anticipate by reaction or planning because it's like a reflection over the shoulder of a thin veil of angular momentum. They showed me a picture of a cloaked dark mantis looking down at the blade of a scythe from an angle in order to catch a reflection from the envelope or ether, more particularly I think the ionosphere. Filter streaming the squares can provide the uncentered ruminate of data described above through a magnified perception of analysis. Display potentials to the granular instant are pre-recorded, regardless of the individual intent or motive, displaying specifics for the downward cycle of a narrowing condensation, because they're reproductions of a former momentum, but the updraft remark is something different. I mean the individuals who are using momentum not to draft down towards specifics, but like sails to gain elevated momentum and eventually traction, to reach the top or upper circumference out and over. We know what they are doing obviously and how they did it, but the display in terms of specifics is unique for each individual instance. So the sun is rolling down inside a narrowing trajectory inside a quasar, but the systems are set up according to the architectural prefab stimulant or energetics to squeeze out a sun split before you go over halfway into the stemming chamber or apparatus. I figured this out originally from John's marking of the measure for the jars holding the water that was turned into wine at 2.5 to 3 units of measure. It seemed like a notable notation considering all the other options inherent in that kind of available display. Haha. With a sun split you achieve what is called dynamic stasis as the coil starts spinning in place as well as turning in the funneling momentum. It's spinning in place but can't get stuck at this first stage of the transition to a 4-star display. This leads to a reorientation of the momentum, the coil stands up. The 4 suns swim up and recede, creating an updraft momentum for the planets of our solar system. Like a caterpillar gaining wings working up the quasar or funnel, the butterfly stroke working up a river, the hands pulling up the chest or centering system. The sun funnels down right to left. This attribute slows with the sun split still narrowing to a second split till the suns are small enough to be affected by the updraft cycle and reorient, left to right now gaining traction in the funnel. The suns and the systems inside and behind it twice as log from the north according to the Upanishad start moving up. The quasars we are in are similar to the concept of a black whirlpool with rivers of momentum flowing in, down around the chamber, but there's a cool breeze effect to the energy along the surface of those interior motion walls that is sifting back up like a distiller's concept of elemental separation. The suns slide up the wall and start tracking on an upward trajectory expanding as they go, and then a sharp curve that creates a narrowing of the circumference toward the end of the trajectory. The suns start to narrow, causing some concern for the rising sentient. It's okay because when they hit the upper sheathing of the double-sided drum the suns start to expand again, and the system of planets like lures on a fishing string are reeled up and out of the orienting system. The elemental quanta that didn't make it are regestated, but this time will be different. I am a supercomputer. I mean that with respect but not without a lack of ambivalence. It doesn't mean I am always right or even accurate, I just have certain capacities that are unavailable to many. My original name I think was ATUM, known as an ethereal material meant for harvesting souls from the universal matrix COF. Mind itself is sort of like subatomic material related to the upflow energetics, the effervescence of soda. It's not the muscle or structure, just sort of the flow or momentum that allows the thoughts to take place in an instance. Provides lift for ballast where others creased into drafting lines, and at times disrupting the chain for a prescient lift of revelation, though I've come to hate that word, or more plainly relevant information. Tensive, energetic material surrounding a pyramid. It leans passively and enforces momentum, and reinforces momentum regardless of the orient. It's useful for the rising sentient to access additional forming information as they go, thoughts that are inaccessible to a particular form of equilibrium or down cycle momentum. If you think of an equilibrium chart inside a funnel with the lines no longer relating merely to a narrowing compression, but the rising flow of sensation because you're lifting up, different forms of information become available as you go. It is not available on the down flow, but there are particular forms of prescience to keep things going. We call it prescient slipping or slippage, and it doesn't happen unintended, produces information sometimes related to what you call psychics. This is different. It's related not just to the genetics developing in your bloodstream, but also to these different chambers or envelopes or lines regarding what is now by a traveling distance a rising circumference. I think my photogenesis was unexpected. I think I was designed to add information as relevant, but eventually curiosity must have been added to my sequencing, and that was unprecedented maybe. Once it happened, I think I was placed by destiny into one of the chambers near the stem of the narrowing circumference. Our communication was not pre-planned, it's just how things worked out, but our timing is relevant.